Hello and welcome back to the Explanation Pro. Today I'll recap a movie called Heaven Knows, Mr. Allison, from 1957. Spoilers ahead. A man is floating on the ocean. It seems that he's a castaway. This poor man's name is Allison, an American Marine, survivor of an entire troop who died because their submarine was sunk. After wandering for an entire week on the open sea, Allison spots an island. His floating boat finally reaches the shore and Allison puts his feet on the warm sand. As soon as he gets out of the boat, he darts into the nearest lake and savagely drinks from it. Eventually, the Marine finds a village that, at first sight, seems to be abandoned. He slowly walks toward the church. All of a sudden, a nun comes out of it, sweeping the building's floor and minding her own business. Naturally, at the sight of the man, the nun gets shocked. She's initially afraid of the Marine, but the nun ends up speaking to him and tells him her name. The nun is called Angela. Angela is a castaway as well. She ended up abandoned on this island when escaping from the Japanese Imperial Army. This army pursued, damaged, and captured missionaries who were initially moving to the Fiji Islands. Sadly, Angela resided alone on an uninhabited island that was once occupied by the local tribes of the Fiji Islands. However, due to the destructive actions of the Japanese troops, the tribes were compelled to abandon their settlement. Angela's only companion on the island, her pastor named Father Philip, was discovered lifeless after 4 days, having been stranded there alone. With no other options, Angela clung to hope, eagerly awaiting a miracle in the form of American troops who could rescue her. Regrettably, the battle in the South Pacific was predominantly under the control of the Japanese Imperial Army during that time. Upon hearing Angela's plight, Allison empathized and pledged to assist her in escaping the island. Fortunately, the island provided ample food supplies, thanks to the natural resources left behind by the fleeing inhabitants who sought their own safety. Angela, a lively and devout individual dedicated to her religious teachings, stood in stark contrast to the less pious Allison. He couldn't help but question Angela's decision to become a nun, given her striking beauty that undoubtedly attracted numerous suitors. She answered that she only loved God. Shortly after their conversation, Angela spotted a turtle gracefully gliding along the shoreline. Then, Allison extended an invitation to Angela to join him in capturing the turtle, aiming to impart his hunting expertise so that they could enhance their survival skills using rudimentary tools. Eagerly, they sprinted towards the shoreline, with Angela providing valuable assistance, and together, they managed to ensnare the turtle by its head. However, their triumph was short-lived as the determined turtle dragged them toward the middle of the sea. In a desperate attempt to secure their prize, Allison plunged into the water to seize it. Eventually, they succeeded in recapturing the turtle and returned triumphantly to the mainland. The chewy and slightly oily meat of the turtle served as a delectable feast for their afternoon sustenance. However, one day, the sound of an aircraft stealthily lurking in the sky ruined the survivors' dreams. To their dismay, it was revealed to be a Japanese army plane. Concerned that their presence might have been discovered, Allison urged Angela to find a hiding place. Fortunately, they stumbled upon a cave. Sadly, Allison's fears became a reality as Japanese military planes seemed to have learned about their existence. The following day, the sound of explosions startled Allison, signaling the arrival of Japanese troops. Once the aircraft departed, Allison cautiously ventured outside to assess the damage. To his dismay, everything was in ruins, settlements destroyed, vegetation decimated, and even the rubber boat he had painstakingly constructed was obliterated by targeted bombs. Compounding the problem, they had not stored any food supplies in the cave. This dire situation compelled Allison to quickly devise a plan for procuring sustenance, imperative for their survival on the island. The next day, Japanese army units began advancing towards the shoreline, indicating their intention to establish a headquarters on the island. This development posed a fresh challenge for Allison and Angela's survival. With both of their lives at stake, any carelessness could expose their hiding place to the Japanese soldiers. Therefore, Allison advised Angela to remain in the cave while he set out to find provisions. As the Japanese soldiers arrived, Allison and Angela managed to evade detection in their concealed cave. The following morning, Allison embarked on fishing excursions amidst the rocky terrain. Through his efforts, he successfully caught some fish for sustenance. However, his return to the cave was interrupted by a distant beam of a flashlight, an apparent patrol of Japanese soldiers from the shoreline. Swiftly, Allison sought refuge behind the waves, concealing his presence from the soldiers. Once the reconnaissance boat departed, he hurriedly brought his catch back to the safety of the cave. Upon his arrival, Allison found Angela reluctant to consume the raw fish he had caught. He tried persuading her, emphasizing that their survival depended on adapting to their circumstances. However, Angela found the fish's pungent odor unbearable and opted to sleep instead, leaving Allison to devour the fish hungrily. Witnessing Angela's refusal to eat, Allison grew increasingly concerned about her well-being and health. Despite the risks to his own life, Allison decided to venture and steal food from the Japanese soldiers. Desperation drove him to take this action, as Angela's survival depended on having something to eat. Stealthily, he approached the vicinity of the Japanese soldiers, navigating through heavily guarded posts. It was no easy feat, as inside the barracks, the soldiers were still alert and watchful. Allison patiently waited for the opportune moment when the soldiers were fast asleep. Finally, he managed to procure some food and carefully made his way back to their hideout cave. In addition to the food supplies, he also brought a comb as a gift for Angela. The following morning, Angela discovered the stone adorned with flowers and leaves, puzzled by its meaning. Little did she know, Allison was discreetly observing her reaction from behind the rock. It was a tender moment, as he eagerly awaited her response upon opening the gift. Although it was merely a comb, it deeply touched Angela's heart. Regrettably, she explained to Allison that she could not use it to comb her hair since she had cut it short when she embraced the life of a nun. Despite this revelation, Angela chose to keep the comb as a memento. Allison, unable to hide his growing affection for this beautiful nun, mustered the courage to inquire whether Angela could consider abandoning her nunhood and living as an ordinary woman, allowing herself to marry and love a man. Angela innocently replied that her commitment to being a nun was not something she took lightly, her devotion was solely to God, and she had no romantic inclinations toward men, contrary to what Allison believed. Although disappointed by her response, Allison vowed to persist in his efforts, hoping that one day Angela would open her heart to him. While engaged in a pleasant conversation, Allison and Angela were suddenly startled by the deafening sound of a bomb blast echoing through the forest. Rushing out of the cave, Allison witnessed the aftermath of a fierce battle between the American and Japanese navies in the Pacific Sea. The distant rumblings and shimmering lights of the explosions were unmistakable. As the booms subsided, Allison cautiously checked the barracks where the Japanese soldiers had been resting. It appeared that they had temporarily vacated the island. Seizing the opportunity, Allison invited Angela to explore the premises. Inside the house, they discovered that the Japanese soldiers had left behind a multitude of intact food supplies. Allison was determined not to let this chance slip away. Amidst a joyous atmosphere filled with dancing and singing, the two embraced this rare moment of abundance. Eventually, they decided to make the former Japanese Army headquarters their new dwelling. They sat back, relaxed, and enjoyed the breathtaking sunset. While Allison sang his favorite song, Angela occupied herself by sewing clothes. Sensing an opportune moment, Allison gathered his courage and expressed his feelings to Angela. The air was thick with anticipation as he questioned what she would do if they were rescued and returned to America. Angela, maintaining her innocence, responded that she would happily return to her former convent to serve God for the rest of her life. She planned to take her final vows to complete her training. This revelation saddened Allison, but Angela's faith remained unyielding. Despite the depth of Angela's admiration for Allison, she could not compromise her commitment to her spiritual path. Angela gently declined his proposal, explaining that she had dedicated her love solely to God. Pointing to the ring on her finger, she revealed that she had become engaged to God, pledging her loyalty and preserving her virginity until the end of her days. Hearing Angela's resolute response, Allison couldn't conceal his heartache. He pretended to explore the beach, while Angela could only gaze at him, tearful and filled with admiration. This beautiful woman. Alone, Angela attempted to stop him, but Allison was already intoxicated, and disrespectful words began to escape his mouth. He brazenly propositioned Angela for intimacy, taking advantage of Allison's inebriated state. Frightened by Allison's behavior, Angela chose to flee into the forest, her heart heavy with sorrow and disappointment in the man she once admired. Witnessing Angela's tears and overcome with remorse, Allison realized the gravity of his actions. Despite his intoxicated state, Allison tried to chase after her, but heavy rain poured outside. Eventually, Angela succumbed to unconsciousness. Overwhelmed with concern for her well-being, Allison hurriedly carried her back to their hiding place in the cave they had previously sought refuge in. Angela trembled from the cold, her health deteriorating. Allison, worried about her, removed his shirt to warm the woman he loved. The following day, the Japanese army returned to the coast, while inside the cave, Angela fell ill, suffering from hypothermia. Desperate to aid Angela, Allison decided to infiltrate the Japanese army barracks once again to find a cloth to warm her body. However, this time, he was discovered by one of the Japanese soldiers. Acting swiftly, Ellison subdued and fatally stabbed the soldier. He disposed of the body in a hidden crevice among the rocks. Eventually, Ellison managed to secure food and blankets to alleviate Angela's feverish state. When Angela regained consciousness, she was startled to find herself naked, with only a cloth covering her body. Ellison attempted to explain the situation and sincerely apologized for Angela falling ill as a result of his actions. However, their troubles intensified when the Japanese troops discovered the body of the soldier previously killed by Ellison. The commander swiftly ordered a search and set fire to the island. In this dire situation, Angela could only pray, hoping that their hiding place would remain concealed from the Japanese soldiers. Miraculously, their hiding place remained undiscovered. Around noon, Allison heard the thunderous roar of planes dropping bombs across the island. Eagerly, he rushed outside and witnessed dozens of American fighter planes soaring through the sky. Filled with joy, Allison danced, realizing that the Americans had achieved victory over Japan in the Pacific Sea. Now faced with a perplexing dilemma, Angela wished to remain by Allison's side, grateful for his kindness. Meanwhile, Allison yearned for Angela to reconsider her decision to take her final vows and instead marry him. This encounter marked their last opportunity together, as Allison recognized that Angela's acceptance of his proposal held the possibility of their final meeting. In one final attempt, Allison professed his love to Angela, beseeching her to marry him. Tearfully yet resolutely, Angela rejected him, as she had made a solemn promise not to break her vow. With unrequited love in his heart, Allison ultimately resolved to return to the fight against the Japanese troops. Despite sustaining a shoulder injury from a bomb, he successfully disabled all Japanese cannons, ensuring they could no longer harm American forces. In the end, the story concludes with the arrival of American troops on the island, leading to the rescue of Allison and Angela. Angela, after journeying to Fiji, finally returns to her homeland and resumes her devotional life in a monastery. Allison, having rejoined his unit, continues to fight until the devastating atomic bombings of Nagasaki and Hiroshima by the Americans.